This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hey, good afternoon. Carl Duffy joining you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Audio coming through hot on this Monday afternoon. How are you doing? Good to be with you here as we will get ready to take off and see where we go over the next 2 hours here on the Wisconsin Live Desk with you every Monday through Friday from our Milwaukee studios, bringing the news as it happens. A quick whip around, and then I want to get you right out to something we're tracking right now as we give you a live look at American Family Field. I can tell you the roof was open earlier. It is closed now. Probably a mix of temperatures and weather on the way for the Brewers, who host the Orioles tonight. But quickly, when a Brewers player is talking live at a local school, gotta get you some of that here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. This is at Tosa West, where a special surprise for the students today. They got a drop-by of a Milwaukee Brewer ahead of the game tonight. Let's listen in live. There's a fun Q&A going on between the students and the Brewers today with the racing sausages in the background.
I could eat pasta for days, so finding the best pasta spot in Milwaukee is kind of what I'm into right now, at least.
Did you find it?
I heard Onesto's. I haven't been there yet, but I've heard really good things about it, so I'm gonna have to try that soon.
And then what kind of advice do you have for this group? I know that they've all just received a great accomplishment and they've done a great job the last, some of them 4 years, some of them a couple years, some of them, I think we have some freshmen here too, but what advice do you have for them as they embark on the next chapter of their journey, wherever that is?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have done an amazing job up till now, so I think you have a pretty good grasp on what's important, if you're sitting here, but I think at the end of the day, it's not always going to be easy, but I think, having a strong mindset and just staying in the moment, staying, day to day. You got a big exam in college. It can get stressful. Trust me, I know. But just know that it definitely gets better. You'll have to, take it day by day. And I mean, you guys have done it, like I said, a great job up until this point. So just keep doing what you're doing.
That's great. I don't know, Vanessa, where we're at on time. Do we have any time for any other questions, or are we?
Does anyone have questions? Maybe we'll take 2 questions. Does anyone have any? What's your question?
Okay, before you were going to the minor leagues, or when you were just in college, were you just thinking mainly of going into whatever you're majoring in, going professional route, or were you thinking that you're going to go into the minor leagues?
It's a really good question. Yeah, so going to a D3 school, fairly high academic, that was a big priority for me. A lot of my teammates, they don't really have the same aspirations or, goals that I have within the sport of baseball. So, they're getting internships and, whatever type of job they want to do in the summers. And I wanted to play baseball, so I was playing summer ball. I played in the Northwoods League, so my team was in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, and we travel all around Wisconsin playing, baseball during the summer. Is somewhat of a schedule similar to the minor league, so it was really good. But in my head, it's like I wanted to put all my eggs in one basket and give myself the best shot to get to the next level in baseball. And I think going to a school like Wash U was kind of my plan B. That was my fallback. I knew that there's a chance that I don't play, baseball for a living. And so the academic side was really important, but at the same time, I was gonna give it all I got type of thing. I think I knew how passionate I was about it, and whatever your passion is, you kind of have to go all in for it if you're, you really want to pursue it. But at the same time, the academic part is super important, and I understood that too. My family always, made that a priority for me, so I didn't really have a choice. But obviously, I understood what the deal was on that side of things. So, yeah, I think while I was at WashU, I wanted to give baseball all I got, but I was able to go to a good school to where I was kind of able to fall back on on my degree that I was also earning. Really good question.
Anybody else?
What do you do to stand out to scouts in high school and college?
It's tough, dude, because for me, like in anything, it's like baseball recruiting. It's if you're a bigger guy, you know, you're gonna have a better chance. That's just kind of the way it is. You know, if you're super fast, they call it tools. If you're strong, big, fast, and I was kind of none of those things in high school. So that's why I kind of went the Division III route and relied on the academic side of it. I had to go to a good school because not a lot of guys get drafted out of a deep Division III school. So that was super important for me. But I think luckily Wash U ended up being a really good fit. Even though it was a D3 school, I knew they had a really good baseball program, you know, within that division. We were ranked first, you know, a lot of the years I was there. Lost in the semifinals of the World Series, made it to the College World Series for the first time in program history when I was there. So there's a lot of things that, you know, outside of just baseball that lined up for me to go to Wash U. But from there, I think the biggest thing is that I was, you know, put up good numbers, but nothing crazy at the Division III level. But I didn't strike out a lot, so that was kind of my biggest tool. And I think, you know, it only takes one scout to kind of take a chance on you. And I have a funny story. We're in DePaul, Indiana, so middle of nowhere, playing them at the end of the year. And a Brave Scout reached out to me in the winter time, you know, before the season started, and told me he was going to come out to a game. And I didn't know when, I didn't know what game. You know, you're kind of going throughout the season, and he hasn't really contacted me or been to a game yet. And he ends up going to this doubleheader against DePaul in Indiana. And this is a true story. My first game of the doubleheader, I hit for the cycle, which is you hit a single, double, triple, home run in the same game, and I had never done that in my life. And that was the only game he went to. The next game of the doubleheader, I had my first strikeout of the season, like go 0 for 4 with a strikeout, like one of my worst games of the year. But he had already left. So I like to think that he didn't see that game, but you know, I saw the one before. And but something like that kind of just makes me think that, you know, everything kind of happens for a reason. Like, what are the chances that that's the game he goes to? And the Braves were really the only team that, you know, gave me a shot at the draft. So it's kind of crazy to think about.
What a great story there. A sign of opportunity from Caleb Durbin, the Brewers infielder, taking some questions from students at Wauwatosa West over here as part of the Brewers Student Achiever Program. Let's catch the end of it with Durbin and the Sausages, and I'll have a little bit more info once they wrap up the program.
So my thought is, Caleb, if you want to come in the front here, everyone will stand up. The Sausages, if we can get you in the back behind that railing right there, we can get you in the photo. There's stairs right here.
And as they're seeing our photojournalist there moving locations, you got to make sure you get the photo, right, when you're a photojournalist. So moving around a little bit as the Sausages very carefully make their way off of stage and down into the background. I think you'll be able to spot them in the back of that photo. So this is all part of the Brewers Student Achiever Program. Wauwatosa West had that special surprise today. Started around noon or so, as you're seeing just wrapping up after they take some questions there for Caleb Durbin, one of the newer Brewers on this roster, acquired as part of the Devin Williams trade in the offseason last December. I think it was Nestor Cortez, the other part of that trade. But having some fun and interacting with the students. Wasn't that long ago. He was just like them, right? A high school student on his way to college ball, and then so much more than that, a professional baseball player now. Durbin, you heard him mentioning going to Washington University, WashU down in St. Louis. Really great, both student and athlete. That's the combo and the example, of course. Earned a degree in economics while playing baseball at WashU. And, of course, went on. He was drafted by the Atlanta Braves. He mentions that scout being so important to his career. Ends up with the New York Yankees at one point, and then that offseason trade that's brought him to Milwaukee, playing some infield. He was in the lineup at third base yesterday for the Brewers as they beat the Twins to end a losing streak, get back on track. There's Caleb hanging out with the students there. This was all part of the Brewers, let me get it for you again, Student Achiever Program. This is for students in grades 5 through 12 at a number of different schools all across southeastern Wisconsin. Fond du Lac, Dodge, Washington, Ozaukee, Jefferson, Waukesha, Milwaukee, Walworth, Racine, and Kenosha counties. All these different schools eligible for this. And each student achiever that they name is then awarded 2 complimentary Brewers game tickets for the 2025 season and a certificate of acknowledgement there. So Caleb getting to hang out and be part of the festivities here as we check in. Let me let our camera get situated here. You're seeing some of the wobbly. I don't want you to get too sick watching the Wisconsin Live Desk here. I think if they're get set up for another interview with Caleb, we'll try to catch some of that because, hey, how often do you have a professional baseball player join you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk? But that's the joy of it. You never know exactly what's going to happen. And it looks like he is about to answer a few questions with our photojournalist. So once that gets started, I'll bring you back there as well, out to Tosa West, the honored school in southeastern Wisconsin, for this latest edition of the Brewers Student Achiever Program. Pretty cool to see. And hey, by the way, I mentioned this, the roof closed at American Family Field. The games continue. That's the joy of having a roof here in Milwaukee. It is all of 44 degrees. We're in a bit of a cold spell here, but that's not going to be the case inside the ballpark tonight. The Brewers and Orioles going at it 6:40 tonight. And actually tomorrow on Fox 6, you'll be able to watch Game 2 of that series against Baltimore. It's a Brew Crew Tuesday here in this week at Fox 6. Let me get you back out. I think they're about ready for some questions with Caleb. Looks like still some of the festivities, some of the smiles out there. Loving having a professional ball player stop by the ballpark today. Let's listen in and see what Caleb has to say about the whole experience before he gets back to his day job, so to speak, tonight with the Brewers.
How many the public appearance kind of things you've done like this? Is this something you enjoy doing?
I enjoy it. This is actually the first one. Obviously, got called up not too long ago, so this is the first opportunity that I've had to kind of be within the community a little bit since being called up to Milwaukee. So I enjoy it, seeing all their faces and try to make an impact in the community. It's a lot of fun.
Tell me about what do you think of some of the questions they asked?
Really good questions. The two student questions were really good actually, because it's kind of, my journey is unique from D3 to the big leagues, and they wanted to hear a little bit more about that in depth, which is really cool. I hope they got, a lot out of it, because it's, they've done a great job up till now, and they all have really bright futures.
Is this kind of also a reason to want to do this kind of event because of, like what you said, you went to a good school for academics too, because you didn't know kind of, and they, being rewarded for the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's something that I've been passionate about is, the academic side of things, and they obviously have done a really good job. I know how hard it is, especially going to WashU. It's, rigorous academic schedule, so kind of, I have a lot of respect for them and them prioritizing the academics.
And you said you played in Fond du Lac for a while. You were familiar with Wisconsin before you came to the Brewers.
Yeah, fairly familiar, yep.
How have the fans been in Milwaukee so far?
The fans are awesome. I think the Brewers have a really strong fan base in general. I think Wisconsin, Wisconsin loves their sports. They have really strong sports fans. I know, from the Packers to the Brewers and Bucks. So it's a lot of fun to play in Milwaukee.
Anything you want to add about the event and the Brewers campaign?
It's a really fun event. I'm glad I could take part of it, and I wish the rest of these kids the best of luck.
Thank you all so much for having us here. Make sure to come check us out.
That's awesome. There you go. You get Caleb Durbin, a Brewers infielder, hanging out with us, so to speak, on the Wisconsin Live Desk here as we get you going for the rest of the season. Again, the game actually on our air, Fox 6, tomorrow. If you're in the Milwaukee area or in southeastern Wisconsin, get our channel. You can watch the Brewers with Caleb and the rest going against the Baltimore Orioles, who do have a game tonight inside of that stadium. Caleb from just down the road, actually, a Lake Forest, Illinois product, played baseball, of course, also was a wrestler and lettered in football at Lake Forest before, as you heard, going on to Washington University. And now today, getting to celebrate some of those students at Tosa West. Quite a special Monday, to say the least. All right, we're going to go from one star to another here right now as we switch gears and get you out to Brett Lemoyne handling some of the news for us today. Brett, we just had a professional baseball player on. How do you top this? What are you working on today?
I can't. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out who's the other star, Carl.
You, of course, my man.
Me? Hey, listen, this is a really interesting story. This is something that I think a lot of people in Waukesha County will be interested in because it's something that you can get for free, and it's not just any small thing. This is a pretty significant thing. We're out here talking to the folks here at the Aging and Disability Resource Center of Waukesha County. Last fall, they started a pilot program for vehicle modifications, and what that means is they got about $100,000 from the Wisconsin DOT, and they have been helping people, so far 30 people, install power lifts in their cars or vans, right? So this is, you open up the back of the van and your motorized scooter or wheelchair rests in it and it comes down right to the ground so you don't have to lift this up. Why is that significant? Well, we're told a lot of people, seniors especially, need these types of power scooters to get around because of mobility issues. They may not have been able to afford the lift, but they could afford the scooter, which leaves them in a bit of a quandary because, it's so difficult to get those things in and out of vehicles. We spoke with one woman, a 74-year-old who lives in Waukesha. She had that exact problem. She had the scooter. She just couldn't take it anywhere except for around her apartment complex because it was too heavy. So the ADRC here has been helping individuals with this particular grant, and good news, they say there is still money left over. They've just been having difficulty reaching some of these individuals, especially some of the older population, because they'll post something on social media and you can't guarantee that someone in their 70s or 80s is going to be checking their socials on Facebook or TikTok or whatnot. So they're hoping that this is going to get the word out that these options are available to them. The grant itself covers up to about $7,000, which includes the lift and installation. And they say most of the time these installations cost about $4,500. So for these 30 individuals so far who've taken advantage, it's been covered absolutely free. What's interesting here in particular, Carl, in Waukesha County, this is the third largest county in the state. And from what I've told by the ADRC, 27% of the population here is over the age of 60. 27%. And that actually exceeds previous projections, which estimated that by 2030, 25% of the population was going to be over 65. So they are on track to obviously shatter those projections based on the aging population here. So pretty interesting, unique thing. As I said, the 74-year-old, her name is Ann Blackney. She showed us how it works. It's very easy. She said the highlight of her days now is getting to be able to see her granddaughter play soccer, Carl.
That's amazing, kind of opening the world up to her as well. Doesn't just have to hear about the games on the phone, but gets to go and see them. I'm a minivan driver, so anytime we can shine a spotlight on a minivan, van use out there, it's fantastic. And yeah, I was laughing a little bit. As you say, some of the very real difficulties. They have the money, but trying to connect it to the people in need. We're joining you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk on a mobile streaming app. Maybe you're watching on your phone or your smart TV. So yeah, the difference in generations there in technology. What else are they doing besides getting a great reporter like you to kind of cover and feature this story to try to reach those people and try to help more and more grandmothers like that get out and see their grandkids?
Well, they said they did post some things in the newspaper recently. They also, like we said, posted on social media. And what they found is actually they're able to reach some of the kids and grandkids of these individuals. And then that word kind of gets passed on to them, like Ann Blackney, this woman that we interviewed. That is exactly what happened to her. Her daughter was the one who stumbled upon this program and got her signed up. Now, that was 6 months ago that she applied for this grant. She said she was approved in just a matter of weeks. So the turnaround was very, very fast. There are some questions about what's going to happen if this money runs out. You know, there's only $100,000. But the ADRC says there is still money left over, so there is still an opportunity for people to take advantage of this program. And you know, Carl, one of the things that we should talk about too are some of the consequences, right, of not getting out and not socializing, especially for you know, the people with disabilities or the aging population. You know, that leads to other problems down the line too, in terms of depression and just overall health, you know, problems and concerns. So the socialization aspect is certainly something that is very important.
Yeah, I'm sure some of the people you talk to could speak to this, but the actual health effects of not being isolated, of getting out and interacting with people, whether it's the physical movement, but certainly more I would imagine the mental stimulation, right, as well, from having those interactions and conversations with people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this woman, Ann, that we spoke with, she said, you know, this has been a great opportunity for her to be able to enjoy her grandkids. She wasn't able to do that as much before. She actually lived in Michigan and moved out here when her grandkids were born. They're about 11 and 8, if I remember correctly. And so she's been out in Waukesha now for a couple of years, but she has joint issues. She also has Parkinson's. So she hasn't been able to really enjoy her grandkids and spend time with them like she would like to. She also just said over Mother's Day weekend, she was able to join her whole family out in Milwaukee on the lakefront for a Mother's Day celebration, and that just wouldn't have been possible had it not been for these lifts.
Yeah, that's nice to hear too. Some of the broadening of experiences here in our great part of the country. Let me ask you this: what's the process like to actually install one of these? So, if you're interested, or like you said, maybe you're a child or grandchild of someone you think might be interested, do you have to have an existing vehicle or van? Is the process complicated to add one of these? Tell me about that.
It's not. I mean, Ann said the application that she filled out was just 1 page long, so it's not very difficult at all. But basically, they go through certain contractors, so there are businesses out there that are providing these services. You just have to be 18 years old or older, live in Waukesha County. You have to have some sort of mobility or disability to be able to qualify, but there is no income requirement at all. So that's one of the great things about this, because as we said earlier, you know, a lot of people, they seek out these motorized wheelchairs, they need them, but then they have to make a decision because if they can't take them anywhere, they may not even be able to or want to get the scooter or motorized wheelchair. So it does create a pretty big conundrum for a lot of people, but yeah, it's certainly worth it in the end, Carl.
Yeah, certainly. That, as you said, maybe taking thousands of dollars off of somebody's bank account there. They don't have to worry about that. There is an option out there thanks to this great grant funding. All right, Brett, we'll let you get back to it. Sounds like you have quite the character to share with us later on Fox Local 2 with Ann.
Sure do. Thank you so much for having me, Carl.
All right, we'll let you get back to it out there. Brett Lemoyne covering some good news for us, and a great opportunity too. If you're watching that, look and think maybe you have a parent or a grandparent who would be in need and up for that or eligible. Check out Brett's story later. It'll be here on Fox Local once he finishes his reporting for the day. All right, we have to take a short break. We got it all for you. We got professional baseball players. We got handouts of ways that can be life-changing for grandparents and other people dealing with some disabilities or mobility issues out there. We'll see what else we can find for you on the Wisconsin Live Desk, getting going on this Monday afternoon in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Bit of a gray day as we see cooler temperatures and cloudy with rain on the way the next couple days. And we just had a U.S. Senator step to the podium at a press conference that we're going to bring you just on the other side of this break on the Wisconsin Live Desk.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Happy Monday, everyone. Carl Duffy back with you on the Wisconsin Live Desk here as we keep on rolling through 2:30 each and every Monday through Friday. We have a lot more to get to over the next couple minutes. I'm going to quick show you a live shot of the White House, a breezy day in Washington, D.C., where we're getting some details as President Donald Trump says he held a 2-hour phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin discussing a possible work towards a ceasefire and an eventual end to the war in Ukraine. We'll have some details on that as we gather that for you. But momentarily, we want to get you out to an interesting conversation that just started with Senator Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts. This is all part of the American Public Transportation Association conference. And we're going to hear a series of speakers here, both Senator Warren and then the Transportation Secretary on the other side of the political spectrum, Sean Duffy, also supposed to speak this afternoon at the conference. Let's listen into some of the questioning that Senator Warren is getting and discussing at this American Public Transportation Association conference.
My own view on this is we actually ought to start asking for more and be negotiated down if we have to. But it really is, I want everybody to understand this. Look, I don't have to persuade you all. There's a lot going on right now in Washington. A lot of things are getting broken. But we have got to keep the money coming in to transit. And we just have to persuade our Republican colleagues as well as our Democratic colleagues that it's in everybody's interest not to go below 20%. So that is my number one goal. And then my number 2 goal is, to the extent we can do it, is moving in the direction of giving you more flexibility in how you spend that money. That's got to be a key part.
Yeah,
you need it in different ways. So that's it for me.
Well, that's music to our ears, for sure. How do you envision protecting that funding opportunity in the next authorization bill? Because there are some that are looking not to extend it. And
I understand. And look, this is going to be the fight. And this is why it's so great that all of you are here today. Because we got to drive this point home in every single Senate office, every single House office. We all need this funding. We can either all succeed or we can all fail. But that's how it has to be. This is not a Democratic issue or a Republican issue. It's an everybody issue. And I actually want to add a piece to that. Donald Trump says he wants to build. Great. I got an idea for how he can build. He can build a lot of transit. He can put more money into more flexible transit initiatives all around the country. And trying to push that narrative while you're here is just absolutely crucial.
yes, thank you. The funding does support so many critical things like capital investment grants, lower no emission buses, rail funding, accessibility upgrades for people and disabilities. Among these, other policy priorities for that bill?
Yeah, you know, I think the way I'd say it, Phil, it's all of the above on these, you know, and I've got the bill right now with Tammy Duckworth, where we're trying to get more money in so that everything we're doing is accessible, so that people on wheelchairs or people pushing strollers or people who have other mobility impairments will be able to access all that we're doing. And then I always like to use that as a lever. Once you're working on that part, then now that's also a good time to upgrade the equipment to make sure that everything is at its best operational capacity. So I think that's a piece we're at least going to try to get out there and negotiate with them on a little bit. And it's a terrific piece to talk about because, again, it is a reminder, this is where I was starting, how many people use public transit, who's using it, and why they need it. Tammy does a wonderful job of bringing our veterans in, and particularly our veterans with disabilities who have to count on public transportation. And that is sometimes, I don't want to overpromise, but sometimes a way to bring two parties that are hammer and tongs at each other over budget matters together to say we're going to try to support the veterans here. And this is at least maybe one place that gives us a bit of an angle into that.
That's great to hear. There's so many areas of this common ground, and I know so many of my partners here have so much information we'll love to share and give you any ammunition you need to be able to make that point. Chairman Gray is on the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. He set an ambitious timeline for the House reauthorization bill this year. How do you envision the surface authorization process proceeding on the Senate side?
Well, on the Senate side, I don't think, there's no reason it should be slow if we're working together. And I know that's a heroic if, but it really is the case. If we get a bipartisan agreement that, look, everybody wants to get transportation, 20% is our minimum, you know what I mean, kind of the key parts. And the only elbowing is out at the edge of how much flexibility can we build in that wasn't already built into the statutes. What can we say about a couple of these initiatives, like the initiative to make it all more accessible? We ought to be able to do that in a pretty speedy way. Now, if the other side of the aisle starts out with, we're going to cut this by half, boy, now we're in for a siege, right? And that means everybody get down into your bunkers because we are going to fight this. Because I'm not going to roll over on this. We have to have a minimum. Look, I'm very frustrated that we haven't raised it above 20%. But we are where we are. That has to be our minimum. And conversation about numbers should be conversations about higher than 20, not conversations about lower than 20.
That's great. That's absolutely great. So with so many active members at this conference scheduling meetings with their members of Congress this week, what messages do you think we should bring to the Hill to make the case for public transportation?
So I think nothing succeeds like a story in Washington. Every time you walk into a senator's office or a rep's office, ideally, if you know something about that particular state, if you're from that state or if you're from that district, but to explain who's using it, make it real. Frankly, too few senators, too few reps actually get on public transportation, which, by the way, I should say, we were just on public transportation last week. We were on the T. Took the red line downtown because it was going to be too expensive to park and too hard to park where we wanted to go. We went down to a great concert. But trying to draw a picture in the members' minds about who's using this, that's why I started the way I did. A group of business people care enormously, even if they never set foot on public transportation, because they need their workers to be able to get to the restaurant, to be able to get to the gift shop, to be able to get to the mall, to be able to get where they want to be able to hire them. That's the story you can tell. Our vets who are trying to do something creative for those who have no housing, tell that story, make that story real. The more you can do that, the more you get allies in this fight for why the resources are so important. Because that's how I see this. The fight is to get you the resources you need so you can do the job you're trying to do. And if we can get you more resources, you are the people I have confidence in. You will use those resources well to give us better public transit. You will use those resources so that more of us can count on it's going to show up on time. The equipment's going to be clean and usable. The driver, if we've got one, is not going to be somebody who's stressed out. It's somebody who's going to say hello. That every part of this, that the routes are going to cover where we need coverage. This is our opportunity. I'm going to make one more pitch, though, that you can also throw in. Talk about the veterans, talk about the business leaders, talk about the next generation. Everybody wants to think about their hip with the next generation. Our granddaughter is about to move and get her first job, and she's picking out an apartment, and I said, "Are you going to get a car, sweetheart?" She just graduated from college, and she said, "No." She said, "I don't want to have to get a car. I figure I can get on a line and be able to get to where I want to work. And if I have to go someplace else, otherwise I can get an Uber, I can get a Lyft if I need to." But her principal way of getting herself back and forth to work as she is planning moving to a brand new city she's never lived in before is the assumption that she's going to be able to rely on public transit. You all have seen the numbers. Fewer and fewer young people are getting their driver's license. They're waiting till later to get their driver's licenses. It's one more way to make the pitch that this is an investment for today, but it's an investment for tomorrow as well. It's an investment in our young people. It's an investment in our businesses. It's an investment in our seniors. It's an investment in making this country work better. If you make that pitch to the senators and the reps, we got a much better chance of having this thing slide on through. Like I said, there'll be some discussions about some pieces, but I hope very much to keep these as add-on discussions because we all agree on the baseline. And the baseline is forward funding. The baseline is you've got to have your 20%. The baseline is you've got to have a little more flexibility on being able to spend the money. We love what you do and we need what you do. You just got to remind us of that.
Thank you, Senator.
That's Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts there speaking at the American Public Transportation Association Conference. I believe her Q&A just wrapping up there. We're also expecting to hear from the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, also at that same conference. There's been a series of speakers cycling through that stage so far already this afternoon. If Secretary Duffy does in fact take the stage during our window here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, that's something we'll take for you live as well. Hear his perspective on some of the issues affecting public transportation in the country on this Monday. We also want to give you a look at something we're tracking right now, although we'll see if we can get this for you. This is a live feed right now where the New Orleans District Attorney is prepared to answer media questions. Now, of course, New Orleans has been swept up in the news because of those escaped inmates. I believe it was 10 in total, with a number of them still on the run as of today. Now, the DA in the Orleans Parish, District Attorney Jason Williams, is actually holding this press availability on a separate case, but we are certainly expecting some questions in the Q&A segment that will follow that update from the Orleans Parish DA about the escaped inmates specifically. And if that does happen, again, during this window of the Wisconsin Live Desk, that's another thing we'll try to bring you here alive. Also going to get you some of the updates after the phone call between President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin today. As we are seeing on the halls of Capitol Hill discussion there. You can see, obviously, which side of things one person is siding with there. We'll get you an update on those conversations and what it could mean potentially for the continuation of ceasefire, if not full-out peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. All that still to come on the Wisconsin Live Desk. We're rolling right along here, 1:08 on your Monday afternoon.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk, everyone. Carl Defenbaugh with you here on this Monday afternoon, getting the work week started as we are here every Monday through Friday on the Wisconsin Live Desk, 12:30 until 2:30, bringing the news as it happens from here in our state, certainly the city of Milwaukee where we're located, and then around the country and around the world as well. We'll give you a live look outside downtown Milwaukee. Cloudy today. It's cool. 111. Make a wish for anyone who remembers that from growing up as a kid. And there is some rain in the forecast coming both tomorrow and then for your Wednesday as well, though thankfully with the cooler temperatures, nothing like what we got last week when it came to severe weather hitting much of southeastern Wisconsin. Now, I mentioned a couple times that we do have an update on some of the phone conversations between President Donald Trump and his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, earlier today. I thought I had a live feed of the White House, but they've taken that down, so I'll just give you the details of what we learned from that phone call between those two world leaders. The goal, of course, to try and work towards an end to the war in Ukraine, which Russia started about 3 years ago, 2022, and it continues to this day, the fighting between Russia and Ukraine. Now, President Trump said after the call, it was about a 2-hour phone call, that Russia and Ukraine will immediately begin ceasefire negotiations after what they described, the president described as an excellent quote-unquote call with his Russian counterpart, Putin, again a 2-hour call. Trump also then after the fact spoke with the Ukrainian leader, Volodymyr Zelensky, as well as European leaders as well, telling them some of what was discussed in that phone call, some of the hopes that this could be a step toward progress in a ceasefire and eventually a peace. Now, in a social media post, as he is known to do, the president gave some details about this on his Truth Social account, saying, quote, the conditions for that, a ceasefire in this case, would be negotiated between the two parties as it can only be because they know details of a negotiation that nobody else would be aware of. Now, conversations have all come after the White House has said that the president has grown frustrated with both leaders, Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian's leader Volodymyr Zelensky, over the fact that the war has continued and there has not even been a ceasefire discussion between the two countries at this point. After the call, we also heard from President Putin of Russia, who says Russia is ready to continue discussing an end to the fighting, but indicated no major breakthrough after that phone call. He termed it a, quote, very informative and very frank conversation with Trump. Now, elsewhere in that Truth Social post, interesting, too, to say that the tone of the conversation, excellent, again, according to President Trump, and saying that Russia wants to do large-scale trade with the United States when this catastrophic bloodbath is over. And the president, Trump in this case, agreed, saying tremendous opportunity for Russia to create massive amounts of jobs and wealth. Its potential is unlimited. The president adding, likewise, Ukraine can be a great beneficiary on trade in the process of rebuilding its country. So all of this goes towards President Trump's kind of idea and background as a deal maker, a businessman who can get things done. The war has continued despite the president saying before he entered office for the second time that it would be a quickly settled conflict once he was back in the White House. That has not proved to be the case, but the next step towards a possible ceasefire taking place today with the president having a phone conversation, about 2 hours, long one, with Russian President Vladimir Putin. This also came after it was discussed between Vice President J.D. Vance, who visited the Vatican for the inauguration ceremony of the new Pope, Leo XIV. That was also a topic of discussion between the Vice President and the Pope. And the Vatican gets a shout out in that Truth Social post from President Trump saying the Vatican, as represented by the Pope, has stated that it would be very interested in hosting the negotiations. Let the process begin! Exclamation point is how President Trump ended that statement. We'll see what happens. This has obviously been a devastating war going on now more than 3 years since Russia first invaded Ukraine and continuing to this day. But the latest developments, we'll see how large they are, discussions between the United States president and the Russian president about how they could possibly start ceasefire negotiations and eventually peace in the war in Ukraine. All right, we're going to take another break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. We'll see what we find for you on the other side. A lot to get to on this Monday afternoon, but wanted to make sure we touched on that because that just came through a breaking news update just a few moments ago, some of the details of that conversation. We'll see you on the other side.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk. Carl Duffy with you here, 1:18 on your Monday afternoon, 42 degrees here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We got a couple things to track for you right now. I mentioned the New Orleans District Attorney is having a press conference today. Of course, this is the Orleans Parish District Attorney, I should specify. This is not related to the escaped inmates that have made national news from the New Orleans area, but we are expecting possible questions on that at the end of this briefing on a separate case. So we're keeping an eye on things for you here, while in the meantime, the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, as promised, has just stepped to the podium here at a conference for the American Public Transportation Association. So Sean Duffy has been a very busy man, the former congressman from Wisconsin, handling a series of things when it comes to air traffic controllers in the country, some of the issues at Newark Airport certainly. But let's listen in to what Secretary Duffy has to say about public transportation in America at this conference.
Crisis to crisis, and after 4 years, you will have never accomplished the goals and the mission that you set out when you first took the job. And as I've been on the job for 111 days, I see that as absolutely true. You can go from crisis to crisis. But I don't want that to be the story of my 4 years. That doesn't mean we don't deal with crises, but we always have to be mission-driven on all of the priorities that I have as a secretary, but also the priorities that the president has for the department. Now, just another side note on that, the president, when he called me, by the way, he said he loves the Department of Transportation. He said if he wasn't the president and he could pick any department, he would love to be the secretary of the Department of Transportation. So it's great because we got a good supporter in the White House, but also the problem is that if I mess things up, he's watching and I will be held to account. So but he does care because he's a builder. He likes to build things. And he said, I want you to focus on building the big, beautiful infrastructure that connects our people, that moves our products, That's what's so important in America, and I think we can do a better job building those projects, being more efficient with the dollar, and being more effective in the dollar spent to assist and help the American people. And so I would tell you that when we think about big, beautiful projects, it does include roads and bridges. But it's not just roads and bridges. That also includes transit and transit infrastructure. 100%. And maybe contrary to popular belief, I don't have a favorite. I don't care if you want to use planes, trains, or automobiles, your EV or your combustion engine. I think America has a right to choose, and I think they should choose. And so in our department, I don't see transit as the ugly stepchild of the department. But I have 9 kids. I tell you that, 9 kids? And if they ask me who is their favorite, I tell them I don't have a favorite. I love you all equally. It's kind of the same as the modes. I care, all the modes are different, but I care about the success of all of the modes that we have at DOT. And we're going to focus on making all the modes great, trying to leave each mode better off than the way we found them. And speaking of transit, our work, your work, has such an important impact on the people that you serve and the cities that you serve. You get it right, and people have a remarkable relationship with you. You don't get it right, and people don't want to invest in you. So doing your jobs well and serving people well matters because you move families, you move commuters to work, you allow people to get to their health care appointments, and you allow people to shop with local businesses. What you do matters for the communities in which you serve. And if you do your job well, it has a great impact on the jobs that someone could take, or the neighborhood in which you can live, or the school in which your kids can go to, can all be dictated by how well our transportation systems work in the cities in which you all serve. I didn't grow up in a place where people had a lot of money. I come from rural America. I come from poor America. And there's a lot of people that you serve that you're the last lifeline. That if they can't access public transportation, they can't access opportunities. They can't get to a job. And if they can't get to a job, they don't have a shot at supporting their families. They don't have a shot at the American dream, because many of them can't afford a car, which, by the way, we're working on the price of a car. By the way, in America, the average teacher's salary won't allow you to buy the average price of a brand new car. We're working on that.
While the Transportation Secretary continues his speech there at that association conference, the New Orleans DA just stepped back to the podium, the Orleans Parish DA, I should say. So we want to listen in, see if he's taking any questions on those missing prisoners from New Orleans. Let's listen into some of the questioning now.
The Carter family was denied the opportunity to see their sons have their day in court. As Constance just kind of walked you through it, the legal system is founded on the principle that justice must be pursued through due process in a court of law.
And it looks like he is still handling that separate case that they had this press conference for. As soon as some of the questioning on that story that became national, the missing inmates, goes back to questioning, we'll try to get that for you. In the meantime, back to the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, speaking at this conference. Excuse me.
And it's efficient. But I know in so many... I know there's a lot of places around the country where that is not the mission. And it may not always be the authority's fault. It might go to a city council, it might go to a prosecutor, it might go to a judge. There's a lot of areas in play. But I do think the American people expect that. We invest a lot of money in these systems, and we should expect the very best for our communities that get taxpayer money. So I think it's important that we actually get back to basics. The basics of improving security, deterring crime, stopping fare evasion. By the way, everybody wants more money, right? You all need more money. I think the easiest and fastest way to get more money in your pockets is to stop fare evasion. Let's have people pay their fair share when they ride. Easy one. Some tens of billions of dollars are lost because of those who are fare evaders. I would just note that I had a chance to meet with WMATA here in D.C., and I think, again, I don't know that WMATA is perfect, but WMATA's taken steps to go, listen, if you're a repeat offender, where's WMATA? Right there, right there, right in front. Great. They're sitting right in front of me. You could have been in the back corner. But they're trying to take people out of the system that are repeat offenders. Good on you for doing that. Putting more security on your system. Thank you for doing that. In LA, they hired their first transit police chief into the system. Again, steps that are driving safety and security, I think, make so much sense. If I could just take a moment, too, I look at the transit workers who serve our systems, the operators, the engineers, the maintenance crews, the dispatchers, the custodians. All of them keep us moving. They also deserve a place to go to work that's safe. They don't deserve to be abused and beaten. And so I want to partner with all of you. You have a friend in me. You have a friend in this DOT. But I'm going to ask you to actually use your money well, to clean up your systems, to make them safer, to make them cleaner. I don't know why when I travel around the world, I think so many other countries have safer and cleaner transportation systems. Why should we have something second best? Why should we have something less than that? I think we should aspire to be the best in the world, the safest in the world, the cleanest in the world, the most efficient in the world. I think that's what we should aspire to because we're Americans, and I think our people actually deserve that. In the coming years, we're going to have a chance to showcase our great work. The World Cup is coming to America. The Olympics are going to be in America, right? It's going to be great. And when you have all of these people come and pack the cities, the host cities, there's one huge issue that we have in those cities. We're going to try to move people around these communities in massive numbers, and we have to make sure that our transit system is going to crush it for all the visitors that come to see the World Cup and see the Olympics. And we are going, the Congress is going to have to help us out, but the Congress and DOT are going to invest in these communities and these cities to make sure we show the world what we can do with American transit. And I'm not going to leave you on a downer, but just have a side point. I get a lot of side points, and I'll end like 4 times for you, and I apologize for that. But we are $36 trillion in debt. We are. It's becoming a problem. Our credit rating was just downgraded by Moody's, and we run a deficit of $2 trillion a year. So we're spending a lot of money that we don't have, and we are borrowing off the backs of our children. And I think across government, if we can do things a little more efficiently, or the dollars that we get, we serve our communities that much better, I think it's going to be easier to ask for the resources that are necessary to do all the great work that so many of you do. So let's double our effort, let's triple our effort, and let's make our systems more efficient, let's make them safer, and let's make them cleaner, and we'll partner together and make transportation great again. Thank you. God bless.
Former Congressman from Wisconsin, Sean Duffy, now the Secretary of Transportation in the Trump administration. They're speaking at the American Public Transportation Association conference. Also, the Orleans Parish DA is now apparently taking questions, so I want to switch that over as quickly as we can, see what info we might have for you on those escaped inmates.
There was another case that was refused because the victim stated that he did not want to go forward because it was a jail fight and he's now out of custody. And the victim's mother also called and said the son did not want to go forward after we pressed to try to get him to go forward. Derek Groves pled guilty. That's the case that I tried twice with my lawyers. And this man's on the run right now, who could have been taken upstate, but for some reason the state never came to get him. He pled guilty of a battery of a corrections officer from 2024. So there was a conviction in that case. Corey Boyd, there's a charge, and that matter is accepted and is being prosecuted. It's set for discovery for July 16th of 2025, and we hope we get the evidence from the sheriff's office. Robert Moody had charges that came out of OJC. That case had to be refused because the sheriff's office simply did not provide the evidence for us. And that's been happening for a couple of years now. And we have here letters that we have written to the sheriff's office, to the sheriff specifically, calling her attention to a number of issues. We can share those with you, calling attention to the fact that we are not receiving information timely. In one case in particular, we had to bring charges against a sheriff's deputy because he was removing and hiding shanks, weapons carved in the jail during the fight, and that evidence was not available for us to move forward with, and we're bringing charges against that person. It's also a letter to Judge Afric, to the Doug Williams from the FBI, and Dwayne Evans, calling attention to a number of these matters as they were occurring in the jail. So it's not new, and it is frustrating that the governor would not have just simply called me over the weekend. My phone was on. I was working with our digital forensics team, going through jail calls in an effort to try to figure out who might have been involved and knew of this planned jailbreak, and who might have received these individuals once they got out. So I really wish that the governor would have just asked me the question you asked me, and we could have provided him all the documentation. He would have easily seen that the evidence simply was never turned over to my office to go forward with those cases.
While the district attorney there, Jason Williams, down in New Orleans, addresses some of the questions on those escaped inmates and his department's role in the search for them and some of the cases against those different gentlemen escaped from a prison in New Orleans, we have to do our handoff. We're just past the 1:30 midway point of this Monday edition of the Wisconsin Live Desk. You guys have a star coming up for you next. Kim Murphy standing to my direct right here, ready to take over the Wisconsin Live Desk on this Monday afternoon. In the meantime, while we handle our handoff, so to speak, here, we're going to put up testimony continuing in the Karen Reed trial right now. So you can listen to some of that while I get things logged off, and Kim Murphy will join you on the other side as she's taking over duties here on the Wisconsin Live Desk on this Monday afternoon. Thanks for watching. We roll right along to 2:30. Take a listen to some of the testimony in the Karen Reed trial, and we'll be back with you on the other side.
I've always known the difference between a bit and a bite, yes.
You learned that in this case from reading the affidavit of an expert for the defense who pointed out those errors before you submitted your supplemental report. Isn't that correct?
I would have to go back and look at the timing on that. I believe I submitted the supplemental before the protocol from the other expert.
Are you certain of that?
I'm not certain of that.
Isn't it the case that the expert for the defense submitted his affidavit before you submitted your supplemental report?
Objection.
Do you know that?
I do not know that.
You don't know one way or another?
Correct.
And that person that I've referred to for the defense is Matthew DeSogra. You know that name?
I do.
And you have read Mr. DeSogra's affidavit in this case, have you not, sir?
I have, yes.
And you would agree that he pointed out these misinterpretations of yours in his affidavit, correct?
Correct.
I would like to go back to your January 30th, 2025 report. May I have a moment, Your Honor, please?
Yes.
Thank you. May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. In your January 30th, 2025 report, you know which one I'm referring to, sir?
Yes, I do.
Am I correct that you indicated that at the time of this, quote, incident, Burla did not offer support for the infotainment and telematics modules removed from the Lexus, but have since released updated software according to similar modules that are supported by in-vehicle acquisition?
That is correct.
And the infotainment module that was removed from Ms. Reed's Lexus is consistent with the MMU, you know what I'm referring to in the MMU?
Right.
It's consistent with the MMU documented by Burla and has been identified as containing an internal micro SD card not acquired during the initial chip-off acquisition by Mrs. Gaffney. You remember that statement in the report, sir?
I do, yes.
You obtained no additional information from the chips that were already analyzed by Ms. Gaffney, did you?
Correct.
Correct that you obtained no additional information, right?
No data of value from those chips, yes.
No data of value. So all the data of value Ms. Gaffney had already obtained from those chips, correct?
That's kind of a confusing question. So there was no data of value from those chips to begin with.
Fair enough.
Right.
So Ms. Gaffney didn't miss anything of value.
Correct.
Fair?
Correct.
Do you know how much the Commonwealth has paid Aperture to date for doing the work in this case?
I do not.
Do you have any involvement at all in knowing what the contract is between Aperture and the Commonwealth?
I do not.
Have you ever had any discussions with any colleagues from Aperture with regard to how much Aperture has been paid in this case?
No, I have not.
Do you have an estimation as to how much Aperture has been paid in this case?
Not off the top of my head, I do not.
You've never had any discussion with anybody at Aperture about the fees Aperture has charged the Commonwealth in this case?
No, I have not.
Who in Aperture is in charge of knowing how much fees Aperture has charged the Commonwealth?
That would be the accounting department.
Would Dr. Judson Welcher know?
Potentially.
Your analysis, I want to move on to another category, sir. Your analysis in this case was not strictly limited to data in science, was it?
No, it was strictly limited to data and science.
The Commonwealth requested that you review numerous materials in connection with your analysis in this case, correct?
I did review materials, yes.
You did not review the January 29, 2022 CARS report by, well, let me put it this way. Did you review the January 29, 2022 CARS report prepared by Trooper Paul?
No, I did not.
Do you know what a CARS report is?
I do not.
Do you know that a CARS report was prepared by Trooper Paul for this case?
No, I do not.
If there was a collision analysis and reconstruction report prepared by a trooper in that case, would you want to see a document such as that?
No, not for my analysis.
Would somebody at Aperture want to see that document?
Objection.
I'll reword. Are you familiar with collision analysis and reconstruction reports prepared by law enforcement agencies?
I am vaguely familiar, yes.
Vaguely familiar? Have you ever used one in your analysis at all?
I have seen them, yes.
you've seen them. And my question is, seeing them, have you ever read any of them?
Yes, I have read them.
Have you ever considered a collision analysis and reconstruction?
Good afternoon and welcome to the second hour of the Wisconsin Live Desk. I'm Kim Murphy, taking over for Carl Deffenbaugh. You've been listening to witness testimony in the retrial of Karen Reed. That's that high-profile trial that is going on in Massachusetts. She's being retried for the murder of her police boyfriend. She's accused of leaving him to die in a cold storm, first backing over him outside of a party full of law enforcement, leaving him in a snowbank to die. Her defense is that none of this happened and that she actually is being set up by members of law enforcement. So this is a trial that has been going on for a couple of weeks now, and it's expected to continue for some time. But let's get you caught up on some of the things that are happening here around Wisconsin that will affect Wisconsin, I should say. The Supreme Court handing the Trump administration a big victory this morning in terms of being able to deport hundreds of thousands of people who are in this country from Venezuela for protections. They say that their country is too dangerous for them to return home, and so they have been able to live and work in the United States under this special visa. Well, the Supreme Court today said that this is the Trump administration had asked, to rescind that and to be able to start the deportation if necessary of some 340,000 people from Venezuela. And a live look at the White House, just a lot of things that have been going on in that regard. And also in terms of the war in Ukraine, the White House has been very much involved in trying to get those peace talks started between Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky in Ukraine. And he says that Putin is ready to work to end the fighting with Ukraine after a call from the president. And so we know that there have been ceasefires and they've been short-lived. But the Trump administration, President Trump, says that those talks are set to begin immediately, and ceasefire negotiations after that, what he described as an excellent call between Russian President Vladimir Putin, which he says lasted more than 2 hours. So that is a significant development. And the other developments, this involves the Supreme Court saying that the Trump administration can strip legal protections from 350,000 Venezuelans who are in the United States. The court's order, with only one dissent, puts on hold a ruling from a federal judge that actually stayed that temporary protected status that Venezuelans that would otherwise, it would have expired last month. The justices provided no rationale, which is common in these emergency appeals. Appeals court had earlier rejected the administration's request. This case is the latest in a string of appeals the president's administration has made to the Supreme Court, many of these related to immigration. So what happens next? A lot of eyes are on this. The High Court, again, has been involved in several legal battles over the Trump administration's efforts to swiftly deport Venezuelans accused of bringing gang members to a prison in El Salvador. He's using the Alien Enemies Act to do these deportations. So we'll be hearing a lot more from that. We now want to go back to New Orleans. There is a news conference there. We're expected to hear an update shortly on that prison escape, wild escape. The prisoners actually dug a hole behind, from inside a cell, removing a toilet fixture, and they escaped. So let's listen into the latest coming from New Orleans.
Yeah, it's not just frustrating. It's downright dangerous. Police, prosecutors, troopers, U.S. Marshals, after the fact, yes, we're trying to compile this information to see if we can figure out how this unfolded. There was one entity that was responsible for every movement of these individuals while they are in custody. The idea that they are saying they had to go back and look at footage is ridiculous. Those monitors are there to be observed in real time. That is how that jail was built, right? So this concept that they didn't alert the press or the public because they had to figure out exactly who was out, that's problematic. The fact that they had to go back and look at the footage from 1 o'clock that someone should have been looking at, that is problematic. Because, I mean, let's just peel back the onion here. Okay, this person, as it was described, went to go get a bite of food, I think is how it was described. All right, so they come back from lunch, and nobody's there at 1:30. What do we do? This is absolutely absurd, and it is absolutely dangerous. This should have never happened. And this whole thing that happened Sunday evening is only distracting the focus from what it needs to be on, which is bringing dangerous inmates back into custody before someone gets hurt. We are all so blessed right now. We are all so blessed. And I'm not just talking about my lawyers. I'm not just talking about people who work close to the jail. In this community, people are desperate. These men are facing long terms in jail. And the fact that they have not hurt someone trying to steal a car, that is the grace of God.
All right, thanks a lot to you all.
Thank you, guys. We'll get this documentation to you, too, so you'll have it.
Thank you.
And you were just listening to the Attorney General there in New Orleans talk about this brazen escape. New Orleans inmates broke out of prison, and there were a number of failures. We just heard the tail end of that. First of all, that this situation never should have happened. You heard the district attorney say it's only by the grace of God that someone was not injured in this and hasn't been injured in this, with the inmates possibly hijacking vehicles to get farther away. He said someone should have always had an eye on the video, the circuit inside the prison to know when this was happening. So that's the first thing that he says is inexcusable. Second, he says that it's been reported that the person who was on duty stepped away, for a bite to eat, and when they came back, they found out what had happened and then had to review the security footage to figure out which inmates were those who had escaped. So all of these little missteps the DA talked about has led to a delay in the initial launch to find these inmates who are very dangerous. Some are wanted or serving time for prison or in prison for murder convictions. And so the hope is that more leads from the public come in to get these men back into custody, because it's, he said, only by the grace of God that no one has been hurt so far while these men have been out on the run. So that's one of the things that we are monitoring from the Wisconsin Live Desk. Thanks for welcoming me. We're going to take a break right now. We're going to regroup, and we will be back with more stories that are happening right now. So don't go away. We'll be back in about 2 minutes.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk. I'm Kim Murphy, and one of the things that we're following, you just heard from the district attorney in New Orleans talking about that wild prison escape. 10 men actually escaped from prison. This all went down on Friday. Actually, it was a jail, an overnight escape, and how they did it is they went through a hole behind a toilet, they scaled a wall, and there was one guard who was supposed to be keeping an eye on that pod, and that person apparently stepped away to get some food, and during that period, they escaped. 7 of those escapees are charged with murder, and they are still out there on the run. Surveillance video has been shared with the media showing the escapees actually running from the facility. They scaled a fence, they used blankets to avoid being cut by the barbed wire, and then some could be seen sprinting across the nearby interstate into a neighborhood. So this is a developing situation out of New Orleans, and no doubt lots of folks are on pins and needles. So we're going to take you to what's happening right now. We are waiting for the president to sign some pieces of legislation there. It's just very interesting when we get all these feeds at the live desk. You wonder what exactly is in the president's day, and it is always filled with so many things. And one of the things was a diplomatic phone call to Vladimir Putin, which lasted about 2 minutes. They talked about a number of things, but mainly how to get a ceasefire, a solid ceasefire in place to begin the beginning of the end of the war. So this is one of the things that the president has spoken almost daily about, wanting to see an end to the war in Ukraine, saying that this really doesn't benefit anyone. He says that Putin is ready to work with ending the fighting in Ukraine after that call. Hopefully this is something that will, continue on, and really we see something come to fruition here. Also happening today, a federal judge blocked the Trump administration from dismantling a program, the U.S. Institute of Peace. That's an organization, Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency targeted and want it dismantled, but for right now, a judge has blocked that from happening. And the Supreme Court has talked about, again, involved in an emergency appeal, now allowing the Trump administration to strip legal protections from 350,000 Venezuelans. The order potentially exposes them to deportation and puts a hold on a ruling from another judge in San Francisco that kept that protection in place. And then the other thing that we are following is former President Joe Biden sharing that he has been diagnosed with prostate cancer, and right now is just seeking counsel from his family on what they will do next, what kind of treatments he will pursue. And that's another thing that we are just keeping an eye on for you this afternoon. The only other thing that's going on right now is the Karen Reed trial. This is another trial that is expected to just go on for weeks. This is the second time that Reed is being tried for the murder of her boyfriend. I'm going to take a minute and quickly switch to the Reed trial, let you listen in to a little bit of that, and we'll be back in 1 second or two.
Of Miss Reed, correct?
Correct.
And so you call it an exemplar because it's similar to the vehicle in question, correct?
Correct. Correct.
So I'm going to continue using your parlance of exemplar vehicle.
Sure.
And so you conducted this same testing on the exemplar vehicle and successfully reinstalled and tested the infotainment and telematics systems for an in-vehicle unlock and acquisition, correct?
For an in-vehicle acquisition, not for an unlock.
Okay, so for just an in-vehicle acquisition.
Correct.
I appreciate the correction, sir. Yep. But in this case, with Miss Reed's actual Lexus, you were unable to successfully reinstall and test the infotainment and telematics systems, correct?
Correct.
On Miss Reed's Lexus, You were able to get the infotainment backlight and faceplate to illuminate, but in your own words, the infotainment system did not respond as expected, correct?
Correct.
So instead, you took the micro SD card itself and attempted to retrieve data from that card directly, correct?
Correct.
Lexus locks cards in its system, correct?
It does, yes.
If Lexus thought it was appropriate to access those cards, do you know whether or not they would have them unlocked? Do you know?
I do not know.
Now,
I'm going to let the answers.
Thank you, Your Honor. I want to cover a basic question. Do you have any citation to any scientific literature where specifically what you did on this Lexus model is ever done before? Has it ever been done before, to your knowledge?
No, not on this specific model, which is why we did the exemplar testing.
Right. So there's no scientific literature that states that the methodology that you used with this Lexus model is an appropriate methodology at all, correct?
There is literature that addresses the methodology in other ways, but not specific to this Lexus, correct?
There's no literature at all stating that the methodology that you used for this Lexus is the appropriate methodology to use for this Lexus model, correct?
There is no literature about this appropriate Lexus model, correct?
You're listening to some of the testimony in the Karen Reed trial, and the line of questioning is asking about the process for basically searching Reed's phone for text messages and searches that may be related to this case, searches that her friend also made. One of those searches was, how long does it take for a person to freeze? So the questioning here, it seems, is trying to discount the method that was used to harvest that information and whether that information can be trusted. So the Karen Reed trial is happening in Massachusetts. Again, she is the woman who is being tried a second time. It was a hung jury, the first trial, on allegedly, she's charged with killing her police boyfriend after a party. The two were arguing. She claims she left and that she's being set up by other officers who were at that party. The defense says that she's being scapegoated. The prosecution says that she absolutely did this, that this was not the relationship that it appeared to be, and that she was aware of exactly what happened when leaving him in a snowbank in January to freeze to death. We're also waiting for President Trump and the First Lady to sign a bill that has significance to anyone who has any time or any connection to anything online. It has to do with non-consensual postings of information, of pictures, of video. So here's a look as folks are waiting for the President and the First Lady to arrive. It is called Take It Down. That's the Take It Down Act, and he will sign that, and it's targeting non-consensual images, deep fakes made with artificial intelligence, and revenge porn. Those things that have sadly become all too prevalent on social media, and people have been deeply harmed by that. The president's taking action and signing some legislation that will recognize that that is a very real thing, a crime that is happening on social media. And so we're just waiting for the president and the First Lady to arrive. This bill had overwhelming bipartisan support to enact stricter penalties for those who distribute this type of material. Sometimes it's called revenge porn. The act is the Take It Down Act. It's supposed to happen any moment now, 2 o'clock. Our time, 3 o'clock Eastern time. The measure was introduced actually by Senator Ted Cruz, who's a Republican from Texas, and Senator Amy Klobuchar, a Democrat from Minnesota, and it later then gained support from the First Lady, Melania Trump. And critics of the bill, which addresses both real and artificial intelligence-generated imagery, say the language is too broad and could lead to censorship and First Amendment issues. But it is a step in at least recognizing that revenge porn is something that is a criminal act, and it's being recognized that way on the federal level. And it had such support, again, by the First Lady that perhaps push this over the finish line for it to get to the president's desk. In March, she would say, the First Lady said it was heartbreaking to see what teenagers, especially girls, go through after they are victimized by people who spread such content. And again, this will now become a federal law that will stiffen some of the penalties for folks who are convicted of distributing that type of material. Both Meta, who owns Facebook, and Instagram support the legislation, so that is a good sign too that there is a united front on this, and both platforms have in the past attempted to crack down on such information, but sadly we have seen cases all across the country where teenagers, especially who are vulnerable, have been the targets of this, and with tragic consequences. That we know of some suicides that have happened because children have just been so embarrassed to talk about what was going on and haven't shared what was going on, and that just made the power of what was being distributed that much stronger. So we are waiting for that to happen, and we're going to take a quick break, and you are watching.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Good afternoon, I'm Kim Murphy on the Wild Desk, as we call it, the Wisconsin Live Desk, and we're following a couple of events that are happening right now. We are waiting for the President and the First Lady to sign a bill, or the First Lady will be in attendance, but she's been a huge proponent of this. It's the Take It Down Act that's aimed at those who distribute revenge porn, AI-generated images, things that are not posted with the person's consent that can have big harmful effects on that person. We're also listening to the NTSB give an update on that accident that happened this weekend, that bridge accident. So let's listen in. I'm going to switch you to that right now, and let's see what we know about the investigation.
To timeline the time and date, or to put a time and date with when that text stream trigger would have occurred.
Exactly.
Right.
So you knew what the purpose was of your work.
Correct.
With regard to Dr. Welcher's work.
Correct.
And isn't Dr. Welcher's work on the 1162-1 and the 1162-2 text stream event an important aspect of the work of Aperture in this case?
Yes, it is.
Did anybody from the Commonwealth ask you in your January 30th, 2020-25 report to not discuss your work in connection with the text stream 1162-1 and the 1162-2 events?
No.
But you didn't discuss that.
If you're trying to make sense of what's going on and I'm trying to make sense of what's going on, that's because you were listening to the Karen Reed trial and not what's happening with NTSB. So now let me patch you into the correct sound there.
And the condition of the vessel, and finally the environment, and that includes the weather, the wind, the current, the tide, and the operating environment of that. This morning we had an organizational meeting, and we set up various teams, split up into different teams, and they are currently nautical operations, marine engineering, bridge engineering, survival factors, and recorders. We are currently working with our counterparts with the Mexican government to gain access to the ship. We are optimistic that we will have that access very soon. In the meantime, we are working to set up parties to the investigation. The U.S. Coast Guard is always a party to marine investigation. They're automatically a party. And we thank them for getting on scene very quickly. And we do appreciate all their support so far and supporting our lead in this investigation. The bridge team from our Office of Highway Safety has been working today with the New York City Department of Transportation, and they were doing a survey with the department there, and they have affirmed at this point that there is no significant structural damage to the load-bearing elements of the bridge. There is some damage on one of the travelers, which they use to access and survey the bridge at this point, but nothing structural from the bridge is an issue at this point. I will point out that the NTSB has long had an interest in bridge safety, including bridge strikes. Just 2 months ago, we released an interim investigative report about the collapse of the Key Bridge in Baltimore after it was struck by the Dolly, in which we made urgent safety recommendations to numerous bridge owners. These included recommendations to calculate the risk of bridge collapse after being struck by a ship, and if that risk is over an industry threshold, to take steps to mitigate the risk. We have received comments back from the New York City Department of Transportation. We just received it. We're in the process of evaluating it, but accordingly they have reported that they have run the assessment and their threshold, their calculation is below the threshold. Sure, you bet. Our recorders group today, they've been canvassing the shoreline along the area where the accident is, trying to assess any closed-circuit TV and security cameras, and they have had some success today. We are very well aware that there's a lot of video out there from social media, people from cell phones and the such, And we would ask if you have video to first email us at witness@ntsb.gov. Again, that's witness@ntsb.gov. And we ask that you email us not the video, but that you have some. We will then send you a link to upload that video. We also have two personnel with us from our Office of Transportation Disaster Assistance, and they have been coordinating outreach with the Office of the Mayor of New York City, and we appreciate having them on scene. I will now turn it over to our investigator in charge, Brian Young, to give us some preliminary factual information. Brian?
Thank you. Based on preliminary navigational data, I can provide the following timeline for the vessel's movements in New York. The vessel arrived on May 13th around noon and docked port side 2 at Pier 17. The vessel remained there for about 3 days, and at 8:20 p.m. on May 17th, with the assistance of a tugboat, began backing away from Pier 17. The intent was to sail south down the East River and head for sea. Preliminary weather report at this time was dusk conditions, westerly winds about 10 knots, and the current was about 0.3 knots towards the bridge. Upon departing the pier, the vessel's astern motion and speed increased up to 6 knots. And at 8:24 p.m., a VHF radio broadcast was sounded requesting assistance from other tugboats in the area of the Brooklyn Bridge. That was followed by 2 other requests for assistance, and at 8:24 and 45 seconds, the vessel's mast struck the underside of the Brooklyn Bridge. At 8:27, the vessel came to a stop, and at 8:30, both NYPD and FDNY assets were on scene.
Thank you, Brian. Please follow us on X at NTSB_newsroom. Again, that's at NTSB_newsroom for any additional updates or further briefings. And before we get to questions, I want to thank all the first responders who were on scene, and they were on scene very quickly within 5 minutes of the bridge strike. And I'd also like to thank the ongoing coordination by the New York City Emergency Management. We appreciate all the work that they do and all the first responders. I'm going to take some questions, and before I do, I would ask that you raise your hand, and when I call on you, please state your name and affiliation, and we will do our best to restate the question for everybody in the room. First hand right there.
Hi, Lauren Glassberg, WABC TV. In some of the video, we see a tugboat. We don't see it tethered, but this is as it's leaving Pier 17. Can you talk to the role of that tugboat and whether it was helpful or perhaps even harmful in the movements of this small ship?
Thank you. The question regards the status of the tugboat alongside the vessel. As far as we know at this time, the tugboat had assisted the vessel moving off the pier, and part of our investigation will be to look into the tugboat's policies and procedures for the operation once helping the vessel get off the pier, what its guidance would be and what its the job it would have to do.
Right here.
Chris Mancley from CBS News. 2 questions. Any sense that there's a data recorder, a voice recorder on this ship to obtain? And it sounds like from your timeline, whatever went wrong happened very quickly after that tugboat got it out of off the pier. Is that right?
You've just been listening to authorities give an update on what they know so far this early in the investigation into that Mexican Navy ship that smashed into a bridge. Right now, the request is they know that there were a lot of people who were taking video at the time. The NTSB would like to hear from them. We have also been monitoring, waiting to see the First Lady and the President signing a very important act that's targeting revenge porn, and they have just arrived. The First Lady is speaking right now. So let's go ahead and take that.
Especially young people can feel better protected from their image or identity being abused through non-consensual or intimate imagery of I and CII. Artificial intelligence and social media are the digital candy for the next generation. Sweet, addictive, and engineered to have an impact on the cognitive development of our children. But unlike sugar, these new technologies can be weaponized, shape beliefs, and sadly affect emotions and even be deadly. Over the past few months, I have met with brave survivors, deeply loving families, and caring advocates who know firsthand the emotional and psychological toll of NCII and deepfake abuse. Alliston Berry stood boldly for change, despite the risk posed to her and her family by speaking out and making her voice heard. Alliston, your voice and the voices of so many like you made this bill a national priority. Many thanks to members of Congress, both parties, for passing this legislation, including Speaker Johnson, Senator Cruz, Senator Klobuchar, Congresswoman Salazar, Congresswoman Dean, and Congressman Guthrie, and so many more. Thank you all for coming together to prioritize people over politics. As First Lady, my Be Best initiative is focused on improving children's well-being, encouraging kindness, and creating a safer online environment for our youth. Today, I'm proud to say that the values of Be Best will be reflected in the law of the land. I want to thank my husband, President Trump, for standing with us on this effort. His signature on this new law is not where our work ends on this issue. Now we look to the Federal Trade Commission and the private sector to do their part. Today, through the Take It Down Act, we affirm that the well-being of our children is central to our future of our families and America. Now it is my pleasure to introduce the President. Thank you.
Want to sit down?
Yeah.
Send the gentleman. Nobody knew that. Great job. That was a great job. Well, I want to thank everybody. We just spent 2.5 hours talking to Vladimir Putin, and I think some progress has been made. It's a terrible situation going on over there. 5,000 young people every single week are being killed. So hopefully we did something. We also spoke to the heads of most of the European nations, and we're trying to get that whole thing wrapped up. What a shame that it ever started in the first place. So, but I want to thank Melania and for your leadership in this very important issue. It's an amazing issue. America is blessed to have such a dedicated and compassionate First Lady. I would tell you she is very dedicated. In fact, if you look at just what I heard, Putin just said they respect your wife a lot. I said, what about me? No, they like Melania better. That wasn't good. I don't know if that was good. I'm okay with it. I'm okay. I also want to congratulate the First Lady on securing $25 million in the first fiscal year 2026 budget to provide housing and support for youth transitioning out of the foster care. And I can say that she loves children, and you really worked very hard on this, and you had a lot of help from some friends of mine right here, and a lot of the senators are here and congressmen, and I appreciate you all being here. We're also grateful to be joined by people that are just in love with what we're doing. It's such an important situation, and commissioners of the Federal Trade Commission and the CEO of X, Linda Yaccarino. Where are you, Linda? Where are you, Linda? Thank you. Thank you, Linda. Stand up. Thank you, Linda. Great job. You're doing a great job. It's a big deal, right? That's great. Today, it's my honor to officially sign the Take It Down Act into law. It's a big thing, very important, so horrible what takes place. This will be the first ever federal law to combat the distribution of explicit, imaginary, posted without subjects' consent. They take horrible pictures, and I guess sometimes even make up the pictures, and they post it without consent or anything else. And very importantly, this includes for forgeries generated by artificial intelligence known as deepfakes. We've all heard about deepfakes. I have them all the time, but nobody does anything. I asked Pam, can you help me, Pam? She says, no, I'm too busy doing other things. Don't worry, you'll survive. But a lot of people don't survive. That's true, and so horrible. With the rise of AI image generation, countless women have been harassed with deepfakes and other explicit images distributed against their will. This is the wrong, and it's just so horribly wrong. And it's a very abusive situation, like in some cases people have never seen before. And today we're making it totally illegal. Thank you. Upon hearing the stories of so many women affected, our First Lady made stopping these abuses a top priority, and she was given tremendous support because she'd go up to people and talk about it. They say, yeah, we know about it. We have the problem. Can we do something? And she did something about it with the help of a lot of the people, especially the political people sitting here today. Among Melania's guests in the gallery during my address to the joint session of Congress was a 15-year-old young person, Elliston Berry, whose image was turned into an illicit deepfake by a peer. Elliston, where are you? Are you around? Stand up, darling. That's fine. Beautiful. It's great. Thank you. You look fantastic. Elliston quickly became a powerful advocate committed to preventing other girls from suffering the same abuse. Elliston, we salute you and we thank you very much, and it's an honor to have you with us today. Great job you've done. Also with us are several other brave Americans whose lives were rocked by online harassment, including Francesca Manny, as well as a South Carolina State Representative, Brandon Duffy, and his family, who have lost their son to suicide after he was targeted in an internet extortion scam, of which you have a lot of them, a lot. I want to thank you both for your incredible work and to reach this important day. Could you stand up, please? Thank you. Thank you very much. Great job. I've read about it. Thank you very much. It's a real honor to have you here, because there's no place like the White House, I found out. You know, you have a lot of places, and I just left some of the richest places, and we loved them, and they gave us a nice contribution of about $5 trillion, but this is a special place. Even they talk about it, so it's great to have everybody here. Under the law, I will sign in just a moment. Anyone who intentionally distributes explicit images without the subject.
You're listening to the president right now, about to sign the Take It Down Act. Has wide bipartisan support, also championed by the First Lady, and this is aimed at revenge porn, making the penalties for distributing such material, making it stricter, the punishments that those people would possibly face. The president also acknowledging people in the audience and attendance of this bill signing who have been directly impacted either by revenge porn or someone generating an AI image that somehow harms them or discredits them. So this is something that has bipartisan support and is very welcomed. And we also got a chance to see the First Lady. We've not seen her in a couple of weeks, and so it's nice to see her in attendance for something that she has championed in her Be Better campaign, and also when she talks about protecting children. This definitely falls in that category. We're going to take a quick break, and the Wisconsin Live Desk.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Thanks for checking in on this Monday, the Wisconsin Live Desk, or WILD, as we like to call it. President Trump right now and the First Lady are signing a very important act that has bipartisan support, something that we don't say enough, some would say. Let's take a look. It is the Take It Down Act. This is aimed at stricter penalties for those who distribute revenge porn or artificially images that are developed through AI. We know that the consequences can be tragic. We've heard of young people across the country in cases of bullying, really using revenge porn or AI images that are fake, driven them to a point of desperation, and we know that lives have been lost because of this. This is something that the First Lady has championed through her Be Best campaign, and we are going to have much more as we continue to follow this on Live Now. The other story that we were following, the NTSB giving us an update on that crash that happened over the weekend. On May 13th, we know that that Mexican ship docked on Pier 17. It was there for 3 days. On the 17th, it began backing out, and the plan was to head south down the East River to the ocean. That did not happen, of course. The bridge.
Brandon, who lost his son, Gavin.
Let me get up.
He's a state legislator in South Carolina. Has been incredibly brave, and his whole family. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
And there you have it, President Trump alongside First Lady Melania signing into law the Take It Down Act. This is a bill that makes it illegal to knowingly publish or threaten to publish intimate images without a person's consent, including AI-created deepfakes. It also requires websites and social media companies to remove this